Television audiences may best remember James Garner for the iconic characters he played on the shows Maverick and the Rockford Files, but his two daughters remember him best as a loving and playful father. Fatherhood meant quite a bit to James, as his stepmother and alcoholic father had abused him and his brother as children. While James could have easily perpetuated this cycle of abuse once it came time to raise his own children, he instead decided to break the chain. Join FactsVerse as we find out how James Garner truly felt about fatherhood. Over the course of James Garner's career, he starred in dozens of feature films and was even nominated for an Academy Award. However, it's hard to deny that the actor remains most fondly remembered for his television work, which included starring turns on the hit shows Maverick and the Rockford Files. Those two shows came on the air around 15 years apart, with Maverick beginning in the late 50s and the Rockford Files beginning in the 70s. James found a good deal of success over the entirety of his career, even outside these two successful shows. Although James Garner was a Hollywood actor who achieved massive fame during his lifetime, he preferred to stay out of the spotlight. This was especially true when it came to his family, which consisted of his wife and their two daughters. One of these two daughters James had adopted from his wife's previous marriage, while the other is James's biological daughter, Gigi. During the height of James's stardom, his family lived in a rural area of Los Angeles. One of the reasons James was so particular about his family life was his childhood had been incredibly difficult. James grew up in Oklahoma during the Great Depression. His father was named Weldon Garner, who ran a hardware store. James had two older brothers, and his mom died when he was only 4. According to James, he believed his mother, who was half Cherokee, had likely died during a botched abortion. Sometime after his mother's death, James' father's shop burned down. It was at this point that Weldon turned to laying carpets to make ends meet for him and his family. However, it was also around this time that Weldon's alcohol consumption habits began getting worse and worse, causing him to begin abusing James and his two brothers. Weldon would often arrive home drunk after long days of laying carpets. When it came time to feed his son, he would drunkenly force them to sing songs, otherwise they wouldn't get their dinner. Not only that, but refusing to sing for their dinner would typically result in the kids getting beaten. At some point, Weldon divided his 3 sons up and sent each one to live with a different relative. Perhaps wisely, Weldon had decided he was unfit to be a parent, but he changed his mind when he later remarried, calling for his 3 sons to come back home to him and their new stepmother. Once they did, the abuse they had suffered previously only got worse. Not only that, but now Weldon's new wife was joining in on the abuse. His new wife was named Wilma, though Weldon called her Red. She was perhaps even more physically abusive than Weldon was, often beating the kids with tree branches that they were forced to whittle down themselves before each lashing. Of the 3 children, James received the most abuse. In addition to the typical beatings, Wilma would often force James to wear her dresses and makeup so she could ridicule him. Eventually, James grew to be a teen. When this happened, it was only a number of days before the young adult was bound to snap. When he was 14, he decided he had endured enough abuse at the hands of his stepmother. One fateful evening, James snapped and attacked his stepmother out of self-defense. While she was beating him, he turned the tables on her and pinned her to the ground. He began to strangle her, though he was pulled off by his father before he could finish the deed. According to James, he would likely have killed her if he could have. After James snapped, Weldon once again decided fatherhood wasn't for him. He left James and his siblings to fend for themselves, then headed off alone to find work. James would subsequently do many things before achieving Hollywood stardom and starting a family of his own, including fighting in the Korean War. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to FactsVerse if you haven't already, and stick around for a lot more about James Garner. After being left by his father to fend for himself, James Garner joined the Merchant Navy for a short period of time around the final days of World War II. Sadly, James didn't end up faring very well in the Merchant Navy, as being on ships made him seasick. After quitting his position in the Merchant Navy, James worked a variety of menial jobs. This included working as an underwear model, which proved to be his first flirtation with work in the entertainment industry. In 1950, he was drafted into the Korean War. During his time in service, he was awarded 2 Purple Hearts due to the fact he was wounded twice. The first wound was caused by a piece of shrapnel that had come off a mortar round. The second came from a fighter jet's accidental friendly fire rounds, so he certainly saw plenty of action while serving. After James returned from war, he resumed working various menial jobs. At some point, he even got in touch with his father and began laying carpets with him. James also worked as a gas station attendant during this period, which is where he met a man named Paul Gregory. Paul told James he was interested in starting up his own talent agency. Not only that, but he told James he felt the young man had potential as an actor. James didn't think much of Paul's words at first, but he remembered them when he saw Paul's name on a talent agency sign many years later. Upon seeing the sign, James decided to pay his old friend a visit. This is how James officially ended up making his entrance into the entertainment industry. The first role Paul got for his new client was in the Cane Mutiny court-martial. Though the part wasn't a speaking role, it would lead to bigger things. In 1957, James appeared alongside Marlon Brando in the film Sayonara. However, that same year was also when James debuted as the character of Bret Maverick. Maverick ran from 1957 to 1960, and James became famous for playing the titular card player. In 1974, James was given his role on the show The Rockford Files, playing Jim Rockford. That show lasted twice as long as the one that preceded it, running from 1974 to 1980. By the time The Rockford Files was done, James had been a successful television star for well over 2 decades. James was only married to one woman during his life, and he died by her side. That woman is Lois Clark, who's still alive today. The two met in 1956 while they were attending an event for presidential candidate Adlai Stevenson. The two apparently fell in love immediately, and it was only 2 weeks later that James proposed. Although many rushed marriages are doomed to fail, James and Lois's ended up lasting for well over half a century. Despite the fact that James and Lois were truly in love, their families didn't support their union due to differing religious beliefs. The two tied the knot anyways, and James adopted Lois's daughter from a previous marriage. Soon after getting married, they had Gigi. Since James didn't have a very good childhood, he wanted to ensure his 2 daughters did. According to Gigi, James was a great father to her and her half-sibling. Gigi has said James was the type of father who didn't mind getting down on the floor and playing with the girls on their level, which is something not every father is willing to do. Though James never let his issues affect his family, James often suffered from anxiety and depression during his adult years, though he preferred to take it out on himself instead of those around him. According to Gigi, she never knew the pain that her father was going through during these dark episodes. Many believe James's anxiety caused him health problems over the years. One such health problem that is often attributed to his anxiety is the ulcers he began to suffer from during the 70s. It was around this time period that James's anxiety was at its worst, and it caused him to separate from his longtime wife for a short period of time. This is also while James was filming The Rockford Files, which was incredibly physically demanding on the actor. James ended up getting back together with his wife and staying with her until his death in 2014. His cause of death was a heart attack, and he was 86 years old. After his death, Gigi created the James Garner Animal Rescue Fund in her father's honor. Now it's time to hear from you. Comment down below to share if you were surprised to learn about James's difficult childhood. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts Verse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.